Hello and welcome to Deeply Curious, a podcast about the things that we are interested in. My name is Cody Jensen.
My name is Sarah.
And we are married, and we've been married for 9.5 years. And we always have these just curious conversations about, what's interesting this week. They typically start with things like, I was listening to this podcast the other day. I just read in this book or things like that. And we just end up posing some sort of question or idea and then end up talking, debating, and
exploring
that idea for an exorbitant amount of time.
Yep.
So we just decided, let's put a microphone in between us, record it, put it out there, and see what happens. So we have these conversations anyway, so we might as well share them, and hopefully you guys get some, information or entertainment or both.
Insight.
Yeah. As always, the Deeply Curious podcast is sponsored by the things that we love. And this week, I love Audible. Audible is a audiobook platform, and you can actually sign up for a free trial and get a free audiobook of your choosing. You can get any book really you want for free, and you can cancel the trial afterwards if you don't like it. But you can sign up for that at audible.codyjensen.com. I would personally highly recommend the book The Power of Habit. Mm-hmm. I listened to that one and it stuck with me for a long time. I had a lot of these conversations that we had. Many conversations.
Yes.
Sarah and I had started with me saying, I was listening to The Power of Habit the other day and, XYZ. Mm-hmm. And if you end up listening or reading it, some of my favorite stories in it are like about Febreze and how Febreze was on the edge of basically going out of business. Mm-hmm. But then through figuring out consumer habits and changing the way they market towards habits, save the company. And now literally, like, you probably have Febreze under your sink right now.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, it's in almost every single household.
Yes.
But they did it through hacking our habits. And that's like part of what part of the book is about. But then just about habits in our personal life and how, we can use them, break free or use them to our advantage and all sorts of stuff. Highly recommend the book. I think it has fascinating conversations, and we could probably spend this whole podcast talking about that book, but we have something else we want to talk about, so we'll move on.
My favorite thing this week,
and kind of like every week, but we're going to talk about this week,
is hint water.
Yes.
You guys. Here's the thing. We used to buy a bunch of water by a company that shall not be named.
But it sounds French.
It sounds a little French if you say it a little French. And anyways, Cody loves fizzy water, sparkling water. I hate it. It was just the worst. And he would buy this one particular company, and I just hated it. I thought, like, if I was going to drink carbonated anything, I wanted the sugar with it. And I thought that's why I hated it. Turns out, though, I actually like fizzy water if it's made by Hint. The thing I love about Hint is that, one, they have plain non-fizzy water that's flavored, and they have fizzy water that's flavored, so we can have both of the things we love. But all of the flavors that I have had from Hint so far are just phenomenal and like the perfect amount of flavor. I typically drink the non-fizzy, but I actually do like Hint's fizz water too, which was shocking to me. So
versus myself, I love the fizz.
Yeah.
We are actually completely out of fizz now because I drank it all.
Yeah.
But I also do like just the regular flavored water. It's kind of hard to just drink regular water now.
Yeah.
I mean, I can do it, but if given the choice,
I would much rather drink
have
a watermelon
Yes.
flavored water.
I'm drinking raspberry right now. Non-fizz, one, because I drank it all, but two, because it's not, the smartest idea to drink bubbly water as you're trying to record your voice in a podcast to
Yeah.
get some burp action going. So,
Yeah. So if you have a hard time drinking water, highly recommend fizz. I mean, highly recommend hint.
Yeah, and I highly recommend fizz.
And Cody highly recommends fizz.
My favorite is peach fizz, if you want to try one out.
Yeah.
I love the peach fizz one.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's that. So today, what we want to talk about is the why behind why you do what you do. Specifically because this is a conversation, or this is a belief of Cody's, and he's very, very very strong opinions about the why. But
I just have strong language to voice my facts, not my opinions.
Okay, yeah, okay. And then he also just read a book called Start With Why that is about this entire subject. And about a week ago, I just tweeted out a thought that I had, which sometimes can be dangerous. But the thought was, I think that we should always be asking ourselves why we're chasing what we're chasing. And I feel like, a lot of us are chasing these things like fame or money or, whatever it is that we're chasing. Mm-hmm. But we don't really know why we're chasing it. We just feel like we should be chasing it. And so we kind of wanted to, talk about that, talk about your why and what it is and why you should define that before you start doing the things to,
Right.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think like something to kind of get us in the frame of mind. And, I was reading the book Start With Why. And it's funny because I picked it up because it intrigued me to read some, because I had a list of things to like potential like vlog topics that we could talk about or whatever. And we wrote this, I don't know, like months ago. And one of them says Start With Why. And then I found this book called Start With Why. And I was like, oh. So I read it.
Maybe I just need to read that book.
And it was the reason I loved the book so much was because it put into words what I was already feeling.
Yeah.
It was like this person was writing down into beautiful sentences.
Yeah.
What I was already feeling.
Yeah.
And I was like, yes.
How,
and then it was like,
know my brain?
It's like, should I just like highlight all of it? Or like just put a line down the side of the page and be like, this is an important page. Actually, you know what? This is an important chapter. Yeah. You know what? Just read the book again. And so lots of highlights going on, just because everything was like, okay, this is what I'm trying to say. And I think it goes like with any time, the reason we like love like certain quotes or, when we stumble across like a song or a quote or something, a lot of times the reason I feel like the reason we love that quote is because somebody put into words what we already feel.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. I mean, a good quote, a good paragraph, a good sentence, there's literally nothing better on earth than finding like the perfect quote.
Sarah's not exaggerating how she feels about that. Normally I would say Sarah's exaggerating when she says it's the best thing in the world, but I honestly think she believes that finding the perfect sentence or the perfect paragraph. I know it is the best thing in the world because there's something about having someone be able to, or having someone say exactly how you feel when you couldn't articulate it yourself. Right.
It's a very emotional response, and we are emotional beings, and there's literally just nothing better on earth. I don't even know. I will spend hours whenever I'm having a tough time writing something that I'm trying to write, or like when I'm trying to articulate a certain subject or thought that I just can't get out, I go to the internet and I just search. And I search and I search for hours for the right quote that explains everything. For hours.
She'll do this for Instagram captions too.
Yes.
And she'll be like, I don't know, we'll be like doing something and I'll be like, are you ready to go or whatever? And she's like, or are you ready for bed? And it's like, yeah, I need to do this Instagram caption real quick. And I'm like, oh, dang it. It's going to be like an hour and a half.
No, it's like 3 hours later. I usually end up just like falling asleep on the couch because I couldn't find the right quote. And it's like 1 a.m. now. And I'm just,
And I'm like, you do know nobody reads Instagram captions, right?
It's so important to me. I can't even explain how important it is to find the right quote that articulates everything I feel. So read my Instagram captions.
Sarah actually has a 3-ring binder, like a 2-inch 3-ring binder that has a printed out, hole punched, full of typed quotes that she has found over the years, and she would just keep this document. She would write them down in her notebooks, and then she would transfer them into a Word document, and then she would print them out and put them in her quote binder.
Yes. There's just nothing better. I don't know. And like just flipping through a notebook of quotes that you love, like it makes you feel understood. Can't explain it.
I couldn't have written it better myself.
Exactly.
So I was reading this book and it was putting language to these things that I already felt. And one of the things that it did was it actually used a lot of company examples, because that's kind of like the book is not, it's more geared towards businesses than it is geared towards like personal life.
It's definitely in the business section.
Yeah.
Of the bookstore.
Yeah. And so it's giving like a lot of business examples, but they're so good. And the thing that it talks about, and 2 companies that it like talks about a lot are Apple and Harley. Because those 2 companies, better than pretty much any company ever has ever, they embody what they believe, and in turn have raving fans who have found a company, just like whenever you find a quote that's like, this quote gives language to what I feel.
Right.
It's like these companies embody who I am. Right. These companies are, they represent me. They get me. And so like an Apple fan, we justify being an Apple fan by saying things like, well, they make the best computers. They're simple. They're fast. They, whatever it is, like there's tons of like what's, in Apple that we all like choose to say that's why, we love Apple, and none of that is invalid. But ultimately what it comes down to is like the reason we love those companies and love Apple is not because of those are just the things that are easy to talk about. The thing that's hard to talk about is the things that are hard to put language to, which is the why. Right. And Apple's why is, the main one is to challenge status quo. Right. To always challenge status quo in everything. That's what they've always done. And there is a certain type of person that is very much drawn to that. But whenever somebody says like, hey, Cody, why do you have an Apple tattoo? Right. Unless you've already thought it out, it's hard to like come up with language like that. And so they say like, why do you always buy Apple computers whenever they're like $600 more than a PC and, all that stuff? Like I said, you justify it and say, well, because, the software and blah, blah, blah. Instead of, well, Apple
as a company.
Yeah, Apple as a company embodies what I believe. And as somebody who likes to challenge the status quo, and in everything that I do, I feel that buying an Apple computer gives myself an image or something that
outwardly represents what I believe inwardly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because none of us would ever answer that way.
Right.
And because you would sound like a weirdo or a douche or something.
Right. Also, that's more of a subconscious
right.
Belief. Like it's something that you don't really, again, put words to.
Yeah.
But I think with this conversation in particular, we want to take, what this book is saying about businesses and apply it to individual lives.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we're going to try and do.
Yeah. I mean, the reason I'm passionate about this and the reason that I think about it so often is because I have conversations with people who will come to me or message me or, whatever it is. And they want advice or they want to, pick your brain or whatever. And I'm going to use like the example of YouTube. And just because there are so many people who want to make it on YouTube. And if you are somebody who like has messaged me or, asked things like this isn't about any specific person because there are dozens of people.
Yeah. No, I think we're just giving examples that speak to defining why you're doing what you're doing. And It has nothing to do with like, oh, don't message people and ask them this question. It has nothing to do with that. I think it just helped us recognize that a lot of people aren't answering the most essential question first. Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, the essential question, let's just start there and talk about these. So the book talks about these like the concentric circles of what matters basically. And it's like a bullseye. In the center, you have why. And then the next ring, you have what. And then the next ring, you have how. And so Apple likes to challenge the status quo. What they do is create product, and how they do it is better than anybody else.
Right.
I mean, that I just made that up. That's probably not what they would say, but like, that's kind of like the system. And so many people start with the how or the what. I mean, most people do before they ever get to the why. And so with YouTube, people they'll ask or email or whatever it is and say like, hey, how long did you have to, do this before you started making money? Or, I'm trying to think of other examples in my life that people have asked because there's so many things that like people are like, well, how do you make money?
Right.
Whatever it is, like how are you making money doing that? How are you, I mean, that's basically what it always comes down to. Cause I think that's to me, I really think that that's the number one why that people fall into is to make money.
Right.
And that is the thing that I think is the worst possible why you can have. If you go into YouTube and you say, I'm starting a YouTube channel because I want to make money. Yeah. You're going to fail.
Right.
If you say you want to start a podcast, let's say, because you want to get rich and make money, you're going to fail.
Right.
Like,
I think even going into something because you want to be famous, you're going to fail. I think, and this is what I meant when I tweeted out, ask yourself why you're chasing what you're chasing. Because especially right now, so many people, I meet so many people who like just want to be an influencer. They want to be an influencer because, they get free stuff. They get paid to post on Instagram or, whatever. And it's like, okay, but if you don't actually enjoy social media or like you don't find like your passion in social media as work, you're gonna fail because that's literally what an influencer is. Like they work social media. And like if you're not good at that and if you're not passionate about it, it's not going to work for you. And so, and it's same with YouTube, they want to start a YouTube so that they can be seen and make money. And it's like, yeah, but you have to make videos. You have to learn how to edit videos. You have to learn how to do audio. You have to learn Photoshop for thumbnails. There's so many things that go into creating a YouTube video. It's like if you're doing that for money, you're going to hate it just as much as you hate your desk job.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, it's like if your goal is to be an influencer, you have to think about, why do I want to be an influencer?
Right.
And if your why is to be rich and famous, then you're either going to fail or you're going to get burned out before you ever get there.
Right. You're going to make it and then dislike what you're doing.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think maybe let's just back up a little bit and start with this. Let's talk about why we started a YouTube channel.
Okay.
So the reason that we started a YouTube channel was honestly just for fun in the beginning. So I have been doing like making videos and filmmaking. I was a creative director at a church for 10 years, 2 at one and 8 at another. And I've done lots of things in the creative field: video, photo, design, all sorts of stuff, live productions, everything. But what I started to realize as I like got older and older is that my original passion, the reason I got into everything, was video. Video was the thing that I could spend all day on and never get tired. Yeah. And so let's take like with photography, I love taking photos, but whenever I sit down to like edit through a bunch of photos or whatever, I get tired. Like I have to take breaks and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's just draining me. But whenever I edit a video, I'm like sitting there for hours and like, I don't even realize that an entire day went by.
I mean, that's how you spend literally every single one of your days, is editing something. Every time I come home from, Barnes & Noble or whatever, I'm like, oh, what are you doing? Or, oh, what'd you do today? Oh, I, edited some videos and blah, blah, blah. Every day, every single day, you're editing something. And
so, I mean, I realized that was something that was energizing me, and that was like something I wanted to get back to. And then whenever the iPhone 7 came out, somewhere around there, maybe it was before that, but Apple introduced a new feature called Memories. Yeah. And if you, took a bunch of pictures or recorded a video or whatever, you could like hit this Memories button and it would create, basically a very simple vlog for you. Right. It would pick like the clips. Collage. Like it would pick the clips for you and put some music behind it and all that type of stuff. And so I did that a couple times, just playing with the new feature. And I would send it to the friends who were involved like with that video. And we would sit, like I would be in the other room and I would hear Sarah like listening to it. I would hear the music from it and like that she was watching it. And then, I would watch it like every few days, just like we loved watching them. And so, and we had already started watching like Casey Neistat and other vloggers and stuff. And so, it wasn't like we were inventing this concept, but we had done things like this in the past.
Like, truth be told, we made some vlogs a long time ago, before vlog was even a word. Yeah, like whenever we were dating and when we first got married. 2007, 2008.
We were creating videos that today would be considered a vlog. We were just like making them. We never even posted them anywhere.
Our camping trip. Right.
We would just like record stuff just because, like I said, my passion was in video. Right. And back then I was way more into video. I was recording everything. I would make these little videos for us. Wouldn't really like post them anywhere. They were just like our memories. But then slowly I kind of fell out of that. I just like stopped recording stuff. And then that's like, that kind of picks up what I was talking about, that I started to find that again and realize how much I missed it, how much I loved recording stuff. Found the iPhone Memories thing, started using that. And then I was like, well, let's kind of explore this a little bit more. It'd be fun to like make these vlogs. And so started making them, and we loved watching them. Like, so we started just making, it wasn't like we were trying to do daily or even 3 times a week or whatever. We would make like a couple a month at most.
Yeah, it was only when we were like with friends or going to like on a specific trip.
Right. Birthdays or whatever. Like wanted to like capture these memories. And so we were making these videos. We loved watching them back. We would watch them back like 20 times.
I still watch them back, honestly. There are like a few that I think, well, especially when we first started, that like, aren't popular among like the audience, you know. But I watch them all the time.
Yeah.
I haven't probably like all 300 views of them.
Yeah. And so we just like kept doing that because we loved making videos.
Yeah.
And so we just started doing it more consistently. And then just like
And I think, at least for me personally, because I'm not a video person, 2 years ago, I really wanted to learn video, mostly because I love stories. And I'm a reader, I'm a writer, I'm a movie watcher, I'm an avid moviegoer. I love stories, and video is another way to tell stories. And so I was intrigued by that concept. So I did want to learn video, but I myself am not like a video person. But we've had so many people tell us that we would be great on video, you know? And so that kind of like, for me personally, aside from the fact that you are a video creator, helped me realize that like maybe I do have something to offer. And because I never even considered getting into it because I'm not a video maker. But you can look at it from like a different perspective of like, okay, what do you have to offer people? And are you willing to learn these skills, you know, video making, to like help you get your value into the world?
Yeah.
Sorry. So for me personally, that was kind of how I looked at it.
Yeah. And so, I mean, back to, I mean, the point of all of that, of telling you that backstory, is setting up the why that you are even listening to this right now.
Right.
Because most likely you are listening to this because you found our YouTube channel because we vlog 3 days a week.
Right.
But we did not set out to vlog 3 days a week. We didn't set out to be YouTubers.
Right.
We started with why, which is that we loved making videos. And so we kept doing it. And then as we kept doing it and realizing how much we enjoyed it, then it started to be more of the what, and like, okay, we're doing a lot of this. You know, is this something that we could pursue, you know, take our passion and actually make something out of it? Right. You know, this is something that people can do on YouTube. And so we were like, well, let's try it. And so that's what we've been doing.
Yeah.
And the reason that I think it's so important to start with why is if you are chasing fame or money, you end up taking paths that end up going somewhere that you would have not chosen to go if you weren't chasing money.
Right.
And
that ultimately leaves you disconnected from who you are and your values.
Right. So a good example of that is if you were chasing money, if we were just chasing, you know, building a massive channel or whatever you want to say, the reason that our channel blew up in the beginning was, you know, 8 months ago, we had 300 subscribers. Then we spent time and made this video that we really wanted to make. And we like, you know, thought it out and made a high quality video of, you know, our apartment tour. That video, we were thinking this is going to be like our most viewed video ever. It's probably going to get like 1,500 views.
Yeah.
And within a couple days, it had gotten 10,000.
Yeah.
And then within a month, it was like 100,000. And then it kept going. And now it's at 1 million. And so that was like what jump started our channel.
Yeah.
And if we've talked to other creators in the space and other like influencers, you know, around that time. And the thing that kept getting repeated and said to us is like, well, what are you doing to monetize that? Or what are you doing to capitalize on that? Like, you should
make
do
more videos like that.
Right. You should do more apartment tours. You should like do a video on every single piece of furniture in your apartment. You need to be contacting people and like find some more apartments to do tours of. And if my goal was to create, you know, just to make money. If my why was like, I'm just trying to make money, I would have done that. And I would hate what I'm doing.
Right. Because...
And I would have pigeonholed myself. Like, our channel right now wouldn't be what it is because I would feel like, well, everybody subscribed to me because I make apartment tour videos. So if we go to Coney Island and like go, have this fun trip or whatever, I can't really like record it and post that on my channel because then people would unsubscribe because it's not an apartment video.
Right.
But because my why was to create videos that I love to watch and that I want to do, and basically it's to create memories for myself and my wife to later view. That's why I said I didn't even consider that. Right. Like, I LOL'd whenever people, would say that. Not to their face, but afterwards. It was like, you don't get it. You don't get why I'm doing what I'm doing.
Right.
I'm not trying to be an influencer.
Right.
I'm trying to make things that I want to make, that I want to watch, and put them on the internet.
Right.
If that happens to resonate with people and it ends up leading to a career where I can make money doing the things that I love, I mean,
awesome.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like, I want to do that.
Right.
But if that means I have to sacrifice myself and make crap that I don't want to make every single day, then I would much rather just go get a job.
Yeah. And I think that is the key, is defining your why. Because can money be your why? I mean, sure. Like, you could argue that money is the why. But you are no better off being a YouTuber who makes a lot of money and hates the content they create versus being a person in an office, if that is something you're trying to avoid. Like, you're no better off because you're still not creating work that you're passionate about. You're not creating work that you're proud of. You're just creating work.
Right.
And
it's like, if you're just creating a job for yourself, then why go through all of the extra steps, like, because it takes so much work to be self-employed and to be an entrepreneur.
Yes.
And that's what, like, somebody who is a YouTuber ultimately is.
They're an entrepreneur.
You have to make your own way.
Right.
You're creating your own business. It's a small business, but you have to create it. And it's so much extra work to create a job for yourself.
Right.
Like,
when you can just go get paid and have dental and health insurance provided through your work, and just go sit at an office 5 days a week and then go home and it's done. You go home and it's done.
Right.
A YouTuber's life is not like that.
Yeah.
So I think that it just doesn't make sense to chase subscribers and views and money and fame, and, being an influencer if all you're doing is chasing it for money or for fame. It just doesn't make sense, because you're not going to enjoy your life. You're not going to enjoy what you have to do on a day-to-day basis. And you're giving up your freedom in some ways. Like, in order to be an influencer, you give up freedom of your Instagram account, of what you promote. It's just the fact, like, marketing is marketing, and you give up certain freedoms to promote somebody else's brand. So you're still not, free. You're not working for yourself. You're working for these brands, and they're borrowing your Instagram account, and if you're only doing it for money, then you're going to hate it. And it's going to come across as disingenuous.
Yeah, and you're going to burn out.
And you're going to burn out.
And you're going to end up, like, finding some other passion or something else that intrigues your brain.
Right.
And you're going to start pursuing that and letting this thing go that by all standards, you should be like, if you were just a business student, they'd be like, why aren't you pursuing that with everything you have? It's working. It's making you money. You're paying your bills with it.
Right.
But you hate your life.
Right.
And so you start doing something else,
right,
and making a new business because you don't like the other one, even though it would be financially, business smart to do the other thing. But if you are trying to do something on your own as an entrepreneur, if you're not passionate about it, you're just gonna burn out, and it's not gonna work out. Like, you just are gonna leave.
Right.
And this has actually happened in our life before. there was actually, I don't remember how many, it's like 7 years ago now, that we started a clothing company. And I started it, basically it was to make money. And
I would say it happened on accident.
Yeah, it happened on accident. It just like fell into our lap, basically. And my taste at the time aligned with what I was doing. So I was like, I liked what I was making. I was very enthusiastic about creating the business. I was like driven by the passion of creating the business itself. And it kept me motivated for a long time because I was motivated by creating something new, making money, and my taste aligned with what I was doing at the time. And I was able to like use all these talents that I had, and I was kind of using them all at the same time to create this creative business. I was using like these like entrepreneur like talents that I have, and I was using all my creative talents together in creating this clothing company. And we did that for like 5 years, and it grew, it blew up in the beginning. Like I think my passion was just like contagious or something, because like every store I went into and asked, they said yes. And I made it happen. Like we were in, I don't remember how many stores, like 25 to 30 stores. And then over the years, I'm not going to get into all the details because there's lots of things, just like not creating systems and processes, blah, 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 blah. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it was like 5 years later, and I had created something that I didn't want to do anymore. Like
the thing is that you outgrew the business.
Right. And I didn't take the business with me.
Right.
Because I was growing in a different direction than what the business was going. My taste was changing. The things that I liked were changing. But the business, its business model, I kept it going in the direction that was making money.
Yeah.
And at the end of it, it was like, okay, the business is actually making more money now than what it has been. It's like growing faster than what it has been. But I don't want to do it.
Yeah, we didn't. It got to a point where we disliked working on it. We hired out employees to work the like the festivals and things like that, because we just did not want to do it. We weren't wearing what we were creating anymore. Just like it just was so opposite of what we wanted by the end of it.
Right.
And it was still a great product. It just wasn't a product for us.
Yeah. And at that point in the business, every rational decision would have led to
keeping it,
but also like keep it, hire out people, and just like keep building it, and just like remove myself a little bit more where I don't have to do as much of the, hire out the designers, hire out the people to run, like the distribution and like all that type of stuff. And so I don't have to do it anymore. Keep it going because it's making money and it's growing. It would be stupid to shut it down.
Right.
But I knew that doing that would go against what I believe. Because I don't think you should continue doing something if you don't believe in it, basically.
Right. If it makes you unhappy. And here's the thing. If we had kept the business going, we wouldn't be in New York.
Right.
That's the truth. So, I mean, you just got to follow heart and intuition, and eventually it's going to work out in your favor. I think.
And I mean, basically what we decided to do at that point, even though the business was at its peak, basically, at that point. I mean, it could have kept going, but we just decided, let's just shut it down.
Yeah.
Like, we just shut it down. We ended up selling all the assets, and we, out of that, started the fake clothing line that we started. And if you go, I don't want to get into it now, but if you actually go to the website, fake.tm, you can read the manifesto that we wrote about why we started Fake.
Yeah.
And it's all about that. And it was directly started out of shutting down this business and following who we are
Right.
instead of what we had started. Because, ultimately I was burned out on it.
Right.
Because the why behind it wasn't there.
Right.
And everybody runs the risk of burning out and basically creating a life that you don't like.
Right.
Because you didn't start with why you're doing it.
Even if you become a very well-known, famous, rich, whatever, fill in the blanks, you are at risk of not living a life that is very authentic to who you are as a person.
Right.
And it's all about what you're chasing and why you're chasing it, and keeping your why at the center. Because even if you start out with really great intentions and with really good whys, it's so easy to lose track of that, I feel like, and start focusing too much on everything else, everything on the outside. But if you keep your why at the center, I feel like that's where the money is, and that, not literally. I mean, I mean, that's the sweet spot.
Yeah.
And I feel like, I don't know, do you have any ideas or advice on like how to do that? Because I feel like that's important.
I mean, I don't know if I have any, I don't think you can just end this podcast and say all of a sudden that
here's what you do.
Your why is in the center. You have to go through a journey and figure out what your why is. Right. In general. Obviously, like I mentioned, specifically with our why we started YouTube, it's not like we just rolled over in bed one day and be like, we're going to start YouTube because we love making videos and rewatching them ourselves. Right. And it was we stumbled upon it.
Yeah. But I think it takes a lot of self-awareness and a lot of self-exploration and a lot of introspection to even recognize I actually find a lot of fulfillment from this thing. Let me see what that means. Yeah.
For sure.
I think it starts with that. Starts with. I think it starts with knowing who you are and going on this sort of exploration and journey of what makes you you. And then obviously defining your values, I think is really important because you can enjoy something but it not be your values. I don't really have a good example of that, but
I mean, that's kind of the same thing we talked about if you listen to the last podcast that we were talking about music people and how there are some people that you are good at this thing, right, but you're not actually passionate about what you're good at. Right. And then there's also the other factor of, can you be good at it, passionate about it, and make a living doing it? Right. And I don't remember who it is, but there's definitely some research and some writings on that type of stuff, and how if you are passionate about it but not good at it, then it's just a hobby. Yeah. And if you're passionate about it and you're good at it, then it could be a job or something. I don't remember exactly, but then if you're passionate about it, if you're good at it, you're passionate about it, and you can make money, then it's a career. Yeah, for sure. I think knowing those things is the most important, or the place to start. Yeah. And then I kind of look at it as what are those those charts where you have the one thing in the center and then yeah, and then so you have your passions. And they, and then you have what you're good at. And then, where do those overlap? Right. Well, that would be a Venn diagram, basically. I know that's not the diagram you were saying, but that would be a Venn diagram. Yeah. If, it's what I'm good at, what I'm passionate about, wherever that intersects, right, that's what you should be pursuing. Right. I just think that is, the most important place to start is knowing your values, knowing what you're good at, knowing what you're passionate about. And seeing what aligns with all of that, and go from there. Yeah, just like somebody who is on American Idol and is very passionate, but not very talented. That person can be applied to every career, every pursuit ever. It's there are some people who are on YouTube who are passionate about it, but they are not good. Like as sad as it is, like they just aren't good
because
they're not interesting. They don't know how to tell a story, whatever it is, like they're just not a good fit, even though they're passionate about it, which is fine. You should continue doing that.
Right.
As a hobby.
Right.
But it's whenever you're saying like, I'm now pursuing this as a career and I think I can go for American Idol and become this famous singer, even though you can't actually sing, even though you're super passionate about it.
Right.
Problem is most of the time you're blinded by that and you don't realize you're not good and your taste level isn't matched with, what it should be to actually make it in the industry.
But I think the point is that you can't start anything or pursue anything with money being the main factor. Right. Because even if you love singing, but you're not good at it, even if you love singing and you are good at it, you can't go into it saying like, okay, I have to make money at this or it's not going to work because I don't have time for both. If you have a passion, you have time for it.
Yeah.
No matter where that time is, no matter how you find it, you have time if it's your passion. And hopefully, eventually, the passion pays off. Sometimes it doesn't, and you have to be okay with that. And I think, whether you're good at singing or you're terrible at it, if it's your passion, you should still pursue it.
Yeah.
But don't pursue it for money. Pursue it because you love it.
Right. And let me jump in here and kind of give a caveat that you can succeed and make money if your why is to make money. Like there are people who are going to make it with their number one goal and their why is to make money. Yeah. There will be people because they're talented or lucky or connected or whatever it is.
Know the market.
They made it and they were able to make money doing it. The difference is they will not last.
Right.
That company, that individual, whatever it is, ultimately isn't going to become a lasting company.
Right, because I think eventually they will move on to the next thing that's making money.
Right. Next things, or they're going to lose passion. They're going to, burn out. They're going to end up selling, whatever it is. And, a great example is we have these billion, almost $1 trillion companies right now. All of them started with why, and they are around still to this day, like Apple and Microsoft and Amazon and all that type of stuff. If you look back and study them and go all the way back to the very beginning, they all had very specific whys and why they were doing it. And none of them had anything to do with money. It was a mission, and they were pursuing that mission. And they were lucky enough that they all made it. But the reason they're still here today and not like their competitors is because they started with why.
And they continued with why.
Right. And those companies that ended up becoming commodities in the marketplace were those who either never had a why or they lost their vision of why they were doing it.
Yeah.
And so I mentioned that just because I'm sure some of you are listening and, probably thinking of examples or whatever of people who started something just to make money and they ended up making tons of money.
Yeah, it's going to happen for sure.
And that's, is going to happen and can happen and will continue to happen. Basically the reason where I want to put this out and the reason I am so passionate about it is not because of the success or failure of your career, but how you feel.
Right.
Who you are, what you feel at the end of the day.
Right.
Because so often we talk to people and talk to friends or whatever who started doing something that they were passionate about, but they did it for the wrong reasons, or they, their why had something to do with making money as a career, but they did it in their passion. Like literally there wasn't anything more that they were passionate about than this, thing.
Right.
But as the course went on, they made decisions based on making money.
Right.
And so they fall out of passion with what they're doing now, or it evolved into something they're not passionate about it. Right. And they're like, I still love that original thing. I wish I could get back to doing that, but I can't make any money doing it.
Right.
because their why led them down paths that they wouldn't have gone down.
Yeah.
And I think that's why it's so important to think about why you're doing stuff. And if you are somebody who's like trying to get on Twitch, let's say, like that's the newest like thing. And for those of you who don't know, Twitch is a new like social platform that is all about live streaming. It's been around for a while, but I guess it's new in the mainstream. It's like it's kind of blowing up. And it started with gamers streaming their commentary, and you could watch them play the game. And you can make money doing this. And if you are somebody who's like sees in the mainstream that, oh, I can make money doing this, and so you jump on and you just start trying to do it to make money, most likely you are going to fail.
Right.
Because you're chasing after money.
Right.
And even if you don't fail, you're going to burn out.
Right. Right, because these gamers who got on Twitch didn't get on because they wanted to make money playing video games. They got on because they wanted to play video games and share it with people who wanted to share it with them.
Yeah.
That I just feel like that's worth remembering and worth knowing, and just that the people who are the most successful on these platforms, Instagram and YouTube and Twitch and whatever. I mean, obviously, like timing is a part of it. But the most successful people are people who did not start on YouTube because it was lucrative. Nobody even knew what YouTube was, you know, whenever Good Mythical Morning and all of these major creators got on it. They just saw an opportunity and it aligned with what they love to do.
Right.
So they did it. Nobody knew they would make so much money on it.
Yeah.
You know?
And I wanted to say too, this conversation isn't even about YouTube or the social space or anything.
No.
We are talking about it because that is specifically what we deal with every single day.
Yeah.
But, you know, apply cupcakes.
Right.
You know, to it, and it's still the same thing. If you see the cupcake trend, just like it was, you know, 4 years ago,
right?
Everybody's making money making cupcakes, and you know, you've maybe made some cupcakes before, or you know, whatever, or you're like, oh, cupcakes are super easy, I could make those, and so you start a business making cupcakes, and it's either you're going to fail because you weren't starting with the cupcake and realizing like, I love making cupcakes and everybody tells me how good my cupcakes are and whatever. But you started with, it's a craze, I can make some money, and you start making it. You're either going to fail because your cupcakes suck, or you're going to end up burning out because you're like,
I hate baking.
I hate baking. Why did I even start this?
Yeah.
I've been baking cupcakes for 6 months now. Yeah. I'm barely making it. And I do not want to see an oven again.
Yeah. And I just think, I mean, starting with your why I feel like gives you the best chance of success, and not success in finances, not success in fame, but success in life. And again, I think that is what we are specifically speaking to, because people who seemingly don't deserve to find fame and success find it because they're savvy and they know what they're doing. But success in happiness and in joy and in life is completely different than making money.
So the reason it's so important to start with why is because it gives you a lens or a filter or a test to answer whether or not you should do the thing, anything and everything. And there was this story in the book Start With Why, and I wish I could remember the exact details or what page it was on so I could read it to you. But basically it was like the grocery store test. And it was saying that if you go to the grocery store and you said, you know, buy some groceries and, you know, whatever it was. And it's called like the broccoli or carrot test or something. And you bought broccoli, carrots, a cake, and some eggs.
Okay.
Or something like that. And you were holding those in the grocery store line and somebody looked at you. Could they basically... Could you tell what the why is before
like why they're buying what they're buying?
Why they're buying those things?
Okay.
But now take and say, and flip it and say, I told you, hey, we are vegetarian or vegan.
Mm-hmm.
We're vegan and we're trying to live a, whole foods, diet or whatever. And you went back to the grocery store. You would not buy the eggs or the cake.
Right.
You would only buy the broccoli and the carrots. But if I, take somebody else and say, you are paleo, or whatever it is, your why is paleo. And so they would go and they'd buy the eggs, the broccoli, and the carrots, and then somebody else's why is to have fun.
Yeah.
And so
the cake, obviously.
They buy the cake and the eggs to go throw at somebody. Like, you know what I mean? Like, if you don't have a why, you end up buying everything.
Yeah.
But if you have your why, it defines what you're doing.
Yeah.
And so this is a perfect example that many of you may have seen, that I was recently hired to film Dennis Rodman, and I did a vlog for him. And I did it for the story because, it's just fun to that's just a random story that I'm going to have for the rest of my life of, spending like 13 hours with Dennis Rodman. They asked me, they said, hey, we could actually make you like our permanent like video guy for whenever he's in New York. And it didn't take me even a millisecond to know what my answer is.
Yeah.
Didn't even have to consider for a second if it was yes or no. I knew it was no, because number one would be my why right now isn't to give up that much of my freedom to continue pursuing my passions and trying to build what I'm trying to build. And that would take away from what I'm building. And so my why right now, is that, and that would immediately take away from it. Secondly, is I'm sure you know Dennis Rodman and his reputation of, being a wild man and like everything that Dennis Rodman is for. My second reason is my personal brand, like who I am, is not somebody who would spend that much time with Dennis Rodman.
Right.
It's like
you guys are so opposite.
Right. Like and I know that about myself.
Yeah.
I know my why. And it's like, I can spend a day or whatever with anybody, like that's fine. But to spend that much time with somebody who I don't want, to be associated with, basically.
It's just so off-brand.
Right. It's so off-brand that, I don't want to do it. Yeah. And I understand that. And I knew that if I said yes to that, I would ultimately nowhere near be fulfilled in like going out and doing this, however often I would do it.
Right.
And so just knowing who you are, knowing why you do things, just allows you to have a lens to look through every decision that you make.
Right. And I think what you touched on without saying is that not only does it help you define like what you love to do or what you should pursue, it also helps you say no to the things that you won't enjoy. Like it helps you filter the things that are not good for you,
right,
as well as the things that are good for you, which I think is just an important thing to note.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, I know I'm harping on this. I think it's important that people realize that most things in this world are never successful because it was a money grab.
Right.
It's like if you listen to like How I Built This with Guy Raz and all these businesses, they always talk about the origin stories, and never one time have I heard an origin story of any of these companies that are successful started with, well, I was down on my luck and I really wanted to make some money. And so I started, this nutrition bar company. It was like all of them start with, I found, this like recipe or whatever that I was like loving, and like I made it for myself and my friends were loving it, and I like was making them all the time for everybody because like we just loved what we were doing and all this stuff. And then somebody was like, you should make that a business, apply that basically to everything. Like it's essentially how it worked, was like they were pursuing something they were passionate about, and then they realized like
could be a
it could be a
business.
business. I actually maybe could make money doing this.
Those are the most successful stories.
Right.
Obviously, like you said, there are going to be people who succeed because they're trying to make money.
Yeah. I mean, there's a whole industry of people who do that. It's
Right.
like, I don't remember exactly what that is called, but it's like capital investment or I don't think that's right. But basically people who start companies with the intention of selling them in 5 years.
Yeah. Yes. Venture
capital?
Venture capitalist?
Yeah. I don't remember.
I don't know. Anyways, yes. But the most successful, and by successful, yes, financial, but also just like
fulfilled.
The heartwarming stories of a person who started a company and succeeded and loves what they do. Like the success stories are all because they accidentally, like they found a why, they decided to fulfill it, and somebody said like, oh, that should be business, you know? I mean, I don't know. I think on a personal level, feeling satisfied in what you're doing when you go to bed at night is the most successful thing you could ever do.
Yeah.
And you're not going to find that thing by chasing money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think the hard part for me in this conversation is I know that it is kind of on the surface of what the deeper like issue is.
Yeah.
Because in order to really know your why, you have to know yourself.
Right.
And you have to figure out who you are before.
Right.
And so the reason I'm sitting here today talking about this is not because I realized this yesterday and I'm so confident in who I am because I decided to be confident in who I am yesterday. It's because I've gone through a journey over the last, basically my life, but I mean, specifically gone through a journey over the last 8 years as we lived in Tulsa and we're under like amazing leadership and we were finding who we were, why we were doing it, finding our center, which, for us specifically, our center is Jesus, and like finding that, figuring out that we don't need these other things to fulfill us or to like be our identity, because we find our identity in Christ, and then we now just try to be the best version of Cody that I can be and the best version of Sarah that you can be.
Right.
And so that ultimately is my why. Like my why for YouTube was like because of passion about starting videos, but as I continue to do everything that I'm doing, ultimately my why is to be unapologetically myself. I mean, just the same reason that I have, started Fake, and that's kind of like the motto of like the Fake clothing brand is be unapologetically yourself. And it's just me trying to be the best version of me is my why. Right. And anything that falls outside that scope are things that either I don't do or I know I am doing this as a job. Right. Because, I mean, very few often have the luxury of not having something that is just a job. We all have means.
Even if you are a creative.
Right. We all have needs, and we have to create means to get there. And so we do these things that aren't our passions or whatever to do a job, or to make money, which, can be a job. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's like, it's just part of life. Right. That's not really what I'm getting at. Just wanted to throw that in there just so anyways.
We're not just doing all the things we like.
Right. I'm not like, I'm not going to do that because, it's not the best version of me.
No, but I think if you have the right perspective, you can understand that this is just a job. I don't need, fulfillment from this because I just need some cash. Right. There's like a different perspective. Yeah. And if you can define those mindset or those perspectives.
Exactly. And
it's very helpful.
I'm just trying to be the best version of me, which allows me to not have to worry about what I'm labeling myself or what other people are labeling me or, whatever. It's like I am creating the things that I want to create and putting it out there because this is who I am. And, there's all these boxes that I could be put into and say well, I'm a minimalist or I am, vegetarian or whatever. I never start with that. It's more so that I am Cody,
Right.
and I happen to be into minimalism type things, and I happen to be a vegetarian, but I'm never stuck in what those things are, because I'm not trying to be a minimalist. I'm trying to be the best version of me I can be, which aligns with minimalism.
Right.
But if that ever changes, that changes because I changed.
Right.
And I'm not going to put myself in, all these things and be worried about what other people are going to think if I start eating meat again.
Right.
And that they're going to say, whoever is going to say it because I started eating meat again. It's like, I don't care what you think. Like, I'm me, and I'm doing me because I want to be the best version of me. And at this point, this is what I feel.
Right.
And, there's obviously nuance to that. Like, you have your
there's
close
nuance to everything.
And you have like your close people, that if you were to stray away from what your true self is or whatever, that they can speak into your life. But that's beside the point.
Everything is so much more nuanced than one conversation.
Right.
So.
Exactly.
But I think definitely, like, if you don't know your why yet, just start with who you are. Go on some sort of journey, read some books, take some personality tests. Don't take personality tests in order to define who you are, but just allow them to speak maybe into some of your experiences, because that's truthfully, that's so helpful for me. But has helped me understand like my tendencies and my processes and why I tend to react in certain ways. And I think defining your values, being self-aware, just going on that journey is so instrumental in creating a life that you feel like successful and proud of.
Yeah. Self-awareness is
everything. Everything. Jinx.
Buy me a hint.
I think it's the most important. And it starts there.
With why?
Yeah. But I think that in turn leads you to figuring out your why, and eventually leads to a successful, hopefully financially successful life in being satisfied with your work.
Yeah. And I just want to reiterate, because I think it's so important, because ultimately, here's what I'm getting at. If your why is money, it will work for a time, because money is a motivator and it will motivate you for a time. But if money is your why, ultimately you will be led to burnout, because money will never fulfill you.
Right.
Money never makes people happy.
Right.
It only makes you happy to a point.
Right.
It helps lead you to necessities that lead to a happy life.
Right.
But that's different than money.
Because you're obviously happy when you can pay your rent.
Right. You're happy when you can feed yourself, whenever you can have security.
Yes.
But once you're past security, money no longer contributes to your happiness. And so it's going to lead to burnout. Right. And anytime you put finances and money as your why, you will not be fulfilled, you will burn out, and you will not be successful. And I think that in America, we have got it wrong in a lot of aspects of that. Yes. And that's why we live in New York City. And there are so many people in this city who are making plenty of money and yet go into work at 8 a.m. or whatever they go, and then they stay until 8 p.m., 9 p.m., whatever, and they work themselves to death because they're trying to get ahead. They're trying to be, whatever, get the next promotion or whatever. Whenever they're already fulfilled, they already have all the money that they need to be secure, and they're chasing after something that ultimately is going to lead to a better life. Like,
it's just like, I think a good example of this is Sophia Amoruso from Nasty Gal. She started Nasty Gal in her bedroom as an eBay store to pay her rent, but she loved vintage clothing, and she was obviously if you haven't read her book, Read her book. It's fantastic.
Nasty Gal?
Or Girl Boss.
Girl Boss, yeah.
But eventually, I mean, I don't know if you aren't familiar, a couple years ago, she became CEO of Nasty Gal and of Girl Boss, and it was a massive company. She hated what she was doing. She was so burnt out because the reason she got into Nasty Gal in general was because of the creativity that it afforded her. As CEO, she was not accessing that. She was making the financial decisions. She was making the business decisions, and that's not who she was from the beginning. Mm-hmm. So they brought in a CEO, and she became, I don't remember, the creative director. I don't know what her title was. But it's like, it's so easy to get away from something when you're just chasing accolades and money. And I mean, obviously, like, she founded the company, so it was like a little bit different. But my point is that, you know, you get to the CEO office, you get to this place, and you have no idea why you're there, because what you actually loved doing was the work, mm-hmm. not sitting in an office telling people what to do. So I think, chasing more promotions and more money and more whatever isn't necessarily the answer, because sometimes what you actually love doing is the work, you know? Mm-hmm. So it's just something to think about, I guess.
I feel like I've said everything, like I have like all these things, but like, I feel like we've been talking, for over an hour about it, but I also feel like there's so much more to be said about it.
Well, because I think the thing is that it's such a heart issue, mm-hmm. and America is so bad at this, mm-hmm. and we place emphasis and importance on the wrong things, and too many people are lost in that, and it's a really important conversation that we just don't know how to have as Americans. I think that's why, because it is so important to your overall health and happiness, and America's not good at health and happiness.
Yeah, and balance.
Yeah, I think that's why. But like we've said, everything is so much more nuanced than what you can say in a podcast,
right? And
what you can articulate and explain and kind of get out there. So
I mean, I think just to kind of end it on the nuance, is like with everything we've said, all of it is per person,
right? Everything's relative to who you are.
I do believe that there is a universal truth that money cannot satisfy.
Yeah.
And the reason I believe that is not because I've had all the money in the world and I can prove to you that it didn't make you happy, but I've heard and read from so many wise, rich people that are, money is absolutely no object billionaires that have said that money does not and will not buy happiness.
Right.
Like, it doesn't actually matter.
Right.
And I know, like, basically you think like, well, it's easy to say for a rich guy, but it's like they were obviously chasing something. And at the end of the day, they were like, this money brought me no more happiness than I did whenever I was making $30,000 a year and I had a beautiful family. It's like, it's the same thing that makes me happy then makes me happy now.
Right.
And then there are people who, I can't remember who. Well, there was, to bring it to another podcast, there's the Freakonomics podcast just did a series with a bunch of CEOs. And one of the CEOs, I cannot remember which one it was. I actually tweeted about it, so you probably look it up there. But I think it might have been Jack Welch, that he was talking about some of his richest friends are the most unhappy people that he knows.
Yeah, I remember you telling me about this.
And some of his poorest friends are the most happy. Right. That he knows, and he from his personal experience, like, money hasn't brought him happiness. Anyways, getting off topic again, because I just like passionate about it. Yes,
it's a heart issue. It's a perspective. It's keeping again, it's keeping your why at the center of everything you do. If your why is family, you don't need to work all of these crazy hours and become CEO of these companies and do all these things, because your why has nothing to do with that.
Right.
Unless, And I don't know, I just think self-awareness, self-discovery, defining your values, keeping your why at the center, we need to do a better job at that.
Mm-hmm.
And
I think the conversation also goes into like caring what other people think about you and like all that, because that dictates like if you're truly your happiness and your why comes from family, then why are you continuing to chase after, whatever it is, whenever you could easily continue, find something that makes, your $100,000 a year or whatever that you need to be secure and happy, or, to be secure and spend time with your family even more, and you can like do whatever. Why are you continuing to chase even more to fulfill things that only matter to other people and not yourself?
Right.
And that obviously is a whole nother video, which I have made on our channel. You can check that out. It's a video entitled "Why Do We Care What People Think About Us?" Something like that.
I don't care what you think.
And there's the thumbnail says "I don't care" on it. I'll link it in the show notes, and I think continues this conversation a little bit more.
Yeah.
Because the whole point of that too is centering yourself and figuring out what your why is. Because if you don't, then you're going to be looking to all these you're outside
looking for validation
things,
elsewhere.
Exactly.
As opposed to just getting validation from who you are as a person.
Yeah.
Or if you're a faith person, getting validation and identity from Jesus, or just from being centered on who you are, is it just makes everything different. Your entire perspective on life changes. And I think that's the most important thing to focus on. Yeah.
And we could continue talking about this forever because ultimately there is no resolution or
There's no answers. There's no answer for it. Because
the answer is different for everybody.
Yes, it's very personal.
And like we were saying, like you have to start with why. Well, Sarah's why is different than my, like we have a general like consensus why for us, but even at the end of the day, Sarah's why is a little bit different than what mine is. And, Joe, who's listening to this, why is completely different than Ryan's, who is listening to this, but none of those whys are any worse or any better. It's just figuring out what your why is and pursuing that.
Right.
And, that's it. Yeah. And there's so much nuance involved that we can't talk on this side of the microphone without hearing perspective from everybody else to ever come to a conclusion. Like
I think even hearing other perspectives, there's no conclusion.
Right.
There just really isn't. It's so much. Life is so nuanced and so messy and so particular to each individual's path.
Yeah.
That it's impossible to define.
So at the end of the day, at the end of this podcast, what my goal would be is that you just hopefully got something out of this and recognize that even if you are pursuing the right why, that you just know what it is now and you're able to articulate it, or maybe that you can think about it and pursue that. And, just...
I think it's just important to ask yourself these questions on a very regular basis.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at, is that my goal at the end of this isn't to provide you with some sort of answer. It's more so I'm leaving you with all of these questions so that we can all figure out what the best version of ourselves is and find who we are at the core and pursue it. And pursue self-awareness, because that is ultimately what leads to a better life and a fulfilled life, is knowing, who we are.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have a hard time just like saying that's the end, because there's like so much more that like...
I don't, because I love the questions.
Yeah. I mean, I'm fine with leaving it at the question, but it's like, man, there's just like, this could go into so many like things that, we'll save it for another podcast. So that is going to be the end of this episode. I feel like I'm like ending it, but I still have a hard time ending it. So I'm just going to end it. This is the end of the podcast. And thank you guys for listening. We're enjoying making these. Hopefully, you also enjoy listening to them. And as a reminder, the things that we love this week are audible.com, which you can sign up for a free trial, and I would highly recommend getting the free trial and trying out the book, The Power of Habit, which again goes along with self-awareness and figuring out what your habits are and changing them. And you can get that free trial at audible.codyjensen.com. And you can, if you sign up for the trial and even cancel it, that still gets you a free book and it still helps us out. But if you keep it, it helps us out even more. But I want you to enjoy it. So there's that. That's just a way you can support the show. Another person that does support the show is Hint Water. They are awesome. And there's awesome people.
They're great people. If you want a company who knows what they're doing and knows their why, Hint is.
And their why is to create a beverage that is just as good without the sugar.
And they've done it.
And
also, female CEO. So
yeah. All right. Drink Hint, not sugar. And that's going to be the end of this episode of Deeply Curious. Thank you guys for listening. We'll see you in the next one.
Hope you learned something.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.